Uh, I'm going to begin. Welcome to the Calumet Revisited Forum, the first of 2021. I am Michael Bowes of the Association for the Wolf Lake Initiative. I am co-host with Dr. Valerie Penninan of Calumet College. We wish you a happy new year. Before we hear from tonight's speaker, Dick Lanyon, are there announcements? If not, I would just like to make one. Ollie's Winter Wonderland at Wolf Lake is scheduled for Saturday, January 18, with a morning session at 10 a.m. By way of Zoom. It will be the monthly meeting of the Calumet Nature Exchange. There will be an afternoon session at 2 p.m. also by Zoom. This will be a showing and discussion of the 10-minute film on the Wolf Lake watershed.
Hey, Mike, you mean the 16th or the 18th of Monday?
I mean the 16th. Yes, I'm sorry. This is January 16th. Sorry. Thanks for the correction. The presentation this evening is being recorded. The recording will be available within a week on Ollie's website. Would everyone remain on mute? After the presentation, we'll have a question and answer session. You've all received a brief biography of this evening's speaker, so I will just turn this over to Dick Lanyon. Dick?
Thank you, Michael. I want to welcome everyone, myself, and I appreciate the invitation to be part of this forum. I think I'll just start right out and talk about my, here we go. I have a set of slides here, which should come up, share, and we'll go full screen.
Okay.
There we go. Can everyone hear me and see my slides? If not, let me know. Okay. Well, I'll start off by chatting a little bit about my book. This is the fourth book I've written, the 4-book series. In case you are not aware, I've done a history of drainage in the Chicago area, including the infrastructure built by the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. So it's between the 4 books, we go back into history and bring up to date. And the 4th book is about the South area. The first book was about reversing the flow of the Chicago River, building the sanitary and ship canal. And then the 2nd book was about the North area. The 3rd book was about the Central area. And now we're into the 4th book about the South area, or the Calumet area, as we often call it. Some details about the book here are listed on the right, and the photographs, the top photograph is the original Calumet sewage treatment plant built on the same site where the plant is today. We'll get into that later. And the lower picture is the Blue Island Lock, which was the control for flow on the Calumet Sag Channel in its original configuration, and we'll be talking about that shortly. Using some USGS historical maps, I've kind of simplified some of the drainage of the area. Here we see Wolf Lake on the state line back around the turn of the last century. Much of the area along the rivers was wetlands and marshes areas. There were a few communities, shown those. Of course, Wolf Lake was one of 5 lakes that were naturally formed by the action of Lake Michigan, and Lake George is shown there to the east of Wolf Lake. There was another small lake east of Lake George called Lake Berry, which has long gone away. And then there was another small lake called Hyde Lake, just west of Wolf Lake. So we only have these 3 lakes remaining today. Another interesting thing is the connection between the Calumet River and the Little and the Grand Calumet. That came about in the late 1800s. It was uncertain as to how it formed, but anyway, it did form, giving the Little Calumet and the Grand Calumet rivers a new outlet. Also show the Calumet feeder, which was built by the I&M Canal Commissioners, 1848, with a dam on the Little Calumet River just east of Blue Island that forced water through the man-made ditch part of the way, and then through the Stony Creek the rest of the way to supply water to the Illinois-Michigan Canal. Farther to the west along this Sag Valley, we see the Stony Creek flowing to the north and then south and on to the west through the feeder to the I&M Canal. Now, the Sanitary and Ship Canal had just been opened in 1900. There was no connection between the I&M Canal and its feeder and the Sanitary and Ship Canal. Also shown are some of the natural drainage with the marshes along the valley bottom. A slight rise in the land here, Lanes Island was the site of the village of Worth. Otherwise, it was there were no settlements along the Sag Valley until you got to Blue Island at the east. Over in Indiana, we have Lake George again, and where Lake Berry used to be, that basically was eliminated when the ship canal was built in the late 1800s. And with the opening of that canal, it kind of dried up the mouth of the Grand Calumet River over Miller's Beach, giving the Grand Calumet River a new outlet through the ship canal. Shown at the bottom here is the former Katy Marsh, a huge marsh that extended over to the west into Illinois, formed by the Calumet Beach Ridge. And again, in the late 1800s, Aaron Hart, a farmer who owned land in the marsh, started his project to form a ditch, eventually cutting through the Beach Ridge and giving Plum Creek and the Katy Marsh a new outlet. So I talk about the history of drainage because it's fundamental to what developments took place in the Calumet area. We all know that Chicago was polluting Lake Michigan in the 1800s, and there was a lack of sewage treatment technology for large cities, and dilution was thought to be the solution to pollution, at least in our area, to 1889. And that was the year that the Sanitary District of Chicago was formed with the specific purpose of building canals to reverse the flow of the Chicago River and protecting and preserving the quality of Lake Michigan. That was done by reversing the flow of the river, and that took effect early in the year 1900. Subsequent to that, the city and the sanitary district cooperated on a project to intercept all of the sewers that were discharging to Lake Michigan. That was completed by 1907. So you had most of the area of the city of Chicago taken care of, but the Calumet River remained a growing threat. And the Calumet area developed later than the Chicago area, but with the movement of industry to the Calumet area, it was becoming more of a threat. The sanitary district had approached Indiana, seeking the cooperation to approach the federal government since they were dealing with interstate waters, but Indiana was not interested. And the federal government itself had no interest in water resource development. They were opposed to reversing the flow of the Calumet River because of its impact on the Great Lake levels. So the situation we had here with the pollution threat from the Calumet River, shown here, Calumet River flowed into the lake at Calumet Harbor, of course. The city of Chicago had built a pumping station at 95th Street that was pumping sewage directly into the river. And it was about a 4-mile by water route to the intake for the 68th Street or the Dunn water intake crib, which supplied water for the city of Chicago, roughly south of 39th Street. This was a continuing threat for public health in the south side of the city. That was up until 1922 when the district implemented this plan to arrest the discharge of sewage into the Calumet River, and by building a sewer that took away flow from the 95th Street pumping station. More detail on that in a little bit. This is the city's original pumping station right on the corner of 95th Street and Baltimore Avenue. And it was a steam-powered pumping plant. Went into service in 1907. By 1915, it was reached its capacity and needed to be enlarged or replaced. That happened in 1925 by the sanitary district rule. And so by 1911, it was known that dilution wouldn't solve the pollution problem for Lake Michigan or the Chicago River or the Calumet River. And the plan for the Calumet area was to build intercepting sewers to stop the discharge to the river of sewage, to build a pumping station to replace the 95th Street pumping station, and another one over near the plant that was to be built on 130th Street. And then a plant to treat the sewage and a canal to carry the treated sewage away from Lake Michigan. The canal that was built, of course, was the Calumet Sag Channel, 16 miles in length from where it connected to the Sanitarian Ship Canal near Lamont, running east over to its connection with the Little Calumet River east of Blue Island in the village of what is now Calumet Park. Originally, the plan was to extend, extend the channel over to the mouth of Lake Calumet, but with the federal government opposed to any more diversion from Lake Michigan, the size of the channel was reduced and it was terminated at the Little Calumet River near Blue Island. Building this canal was a challenge. The Sag Valley was less inhabited than the valley of the Des Plaines River where the Sanitarian Ship Canal was built. Here we are at the west end from Archer Avenue looking east during the winter 1910. This is the Calumet feeder, partially pretty much blocked by debris and vegetation by this time because it had stopped being used with the lack of business on the I&M Canal. And here we see the bluffs to the north and the south in the distance. Farther to the east, where the Wabash Railroad crossed the Sag Valley at grade, oftentimes the trackage was flooded by the marsh being flooded. We're looking northeast here at the village of Worth up on Lanes Island. And the entire valley bottom was full of marshy and open water areas. At the east end, the canal terminated where Stony Creek flowed into the Little Calumet River. Stony Creek is here, Little Calumet River is over here. We're looking up here, this is Vermont Street, east of Blue Island. Very flat topography through the Sag Valley. And just west of the village of the city of Blue Island was this manufactured gas plant on the banks of Stony Creek. actually the new canal was built to the south of the gas plant in the distance over here. We see a railroad track in the lower right-hand corner. There were many railroads in the area of Blue Island and farther to the east that had to be crossed as part of the canal construction. The western 2.5 miles of the canal was in rock, and here by vertically cutting the wall for a channel, the wall of the rock, and then drilling and blasting the rock out, they excavated this channel. And the spoil was loaded and hauled away. Big challenge on this end of was connecting the new Calumet Sag channel to the Sanitary and Ship Canal. Sanitary and Ship Canal is over here on the right. The new canal, the walls that were built, a dike was left here where the east wall of the Sanitary and Ship Canal was. All of the construction work on the new canal was done in the dry, and then this dike was removed here. You see the drag line working its way backwards, removing that fill. In the foreground, laborers are building a cofferdam to connect the old wall of the Sanitary and Ship Canal with a new wall of the Calumet Sag channel. The middle 11 miles of the Sag channel was a vast marsh. Rock was at various depths, but it was very difficult working in these marshy areas. Many contractors employed dredges, first of all, to remove the soft and wet material on top of the rock. As you've seen here, we're looking to the east from the Wabash Railroad Bridge, and this area had been hydraulically dredged. Far over to the right in the background is light areas of the spoil area where the hydraulic fill was pumped. And in the distance, we see the drag line excavators excavating the trapezoidal channel. This 11 miles of channel had unstable side slopes, and it was entirely lined with hand-placed rock riprap, very labor-intensive process you see here. And the channel itself was only 60 feet wide. It was the same width as the Illinois and Michigan Canal, built half a century earlier. And the small channel was because of the federal government not allowing more diversion. So only a small channel was needed. The eastern 2.5 miles went through the city of Blue Island and over to the Little Calumet River. Working conditions were rather restricted going through the urban area of Blue Island. Here you see the gas plant in the background, and the channel is coming just to the south of the gas plant. Again, the spoil was loaded on rail cars and hauled away. And concrete walls were built here. There wasn't any rock at the depths of the channel. Sometimes the walls were founded on rock. It may have been down there 20 or 30 feet, but here we are to the south of the gas plant. You see the village of Blue Island up on the higher ground here, 60-foot wide channel contained within concrete walls. This is the contractor's way of moving his materials from a central concrete mixing plant to where the walls were being cast with this false work. At the very east end was the construction of the Blue Island Lock. The block walls here, these two recesses are for horizontal sector gates. There are two more recesses in the back for the lock chamber to have gates at either end. And this false work is and a stiff leg derrick for erecting the gates in these two recesses. At the very east end, we had this levee along the river. Here's the Little Calumet River in the background. The levee isolates the work area from the river, and one canal wall, the north wall is coming up here and tying into the higher ground. In the background is the south wall. And in the right background is the lock construction. Oh, this was very challenging to complete this channel, and it took 11 years, started in 1911 and ended in 1922. A large part of the delay was due to World War I and the delay in obtaining materials, shortage of labor because young men were going to fight the battles in Europe, and also a lot of railroad equipment was embargoed by the federal government to use for moving war goods to the seaboard. As I said, there were many railroads. There were 7 railroads that had to be crossed. This was the Wabash Railroad. Can you see here, it's the new bridge is raised up above the valley floor. They didn't like the track flooding, so the district, the railroad built the bridge, but the district paid for the bridge. The railroad paid for raising the embankment on each side of the valley floor to raise the grade above the flood levels. Another was, here we are in Blue Island, looking north. This is Western Avenue coming down, and the original bridge crossing Stony Creek was right at this location. They're building a new bridge to cross the new channel because the channel was built right in the bed of Stony Creek. A bypass was built around here so Western Avenue traffic could continue. And over to the right, we see the embankment of the Rock Island Railroad. Stony Creek is still flowing underneath all of this in a wooden flume under the Western Avenue, under the railroad, and on over to the river. Here's the railroad bridge just to the west, east of Western Avenue, and the 2 walls of the channel. The railroad for construction is here with a break left in the wall for access. Now today, if you you drive through Blue Island and Western Avenue, you don't go under the Rock Island Railroad, you go over it. So that construction occurred later when the Calumet Sag Channel was widened in the 1950s and 60s. Typical road bridge away from Blue Island. In Blue Island, the bridges were a little wider and they had sidewalks, but these road bridges outside of Blue Island had no sidewalks. And you can see this very slow speed limit to cross the bridge. East of Blue Island, we're on the Little Calumet River. This was not part of the river incidentally had to be widened and dredged to improve the flow conditions. But at the same time, by chance, the Illinois Central Railroad is building a new bridge for its line crossing the river near Riverdale. And it's a photograph of that reconstruction. The 7-mile reach from the Blue Island Lock east to Lake Calumet was dredged. This was a large hydraulic dredge contracted with the Great Lakes Dredge and Dock Company. This work was done, completed in the mid-20s. And so finally we had a complete new channel from Lake Calumet all the way west to the Sanitary and Ship Canal near Lamont. Interesting map here was an improvement made in the Calumet River south of Lake Calumet. Here's Lake Calumet and the Calumet River coming from Lake Michigan, crossing under 130th Street and continuing. The original river channel meandered to the east and crossed under Torrance Avenue. And at this point, there was a confluence of the Little Calumet River and the Grand Calumet River. So there were 2 bridges for Torrance Avenue. In the 30s, the Corps of Engineers was authorized by Congress to straighten the Calumet River, and they did so in a straight line basically from 130th Street down here to the channel west of Torrance Avenue. So the Torrance Avenue could now continue in a straight line with one bridge, and this channel was eliminated. Also, in the 30s, actually in the late 20s, there were thoughts about widening the Calumet Sag Channel and the Little Calumet River over to Lake Calumet. But due to the Depression during the 30s and World War II, that project didn't get off the ground. But it was authorized by Congress in 1946. And after design and planning work, money flowed and construction began in 1955 to widen the Calumet Sag Channel from the Sanitary and Ship Canal all the way east over to the Little Calumet River. So here you see the Wabash Railroad, and this is a new bridge. The old bridge was about, the channel was about this wide under the old bridge. And so you see how much wider the channel is now, 4 times wider than it had been. And that was done for the improvement of navigation, because once that channel was there, and with the industrial complex developing over in the Calumet area around the southern end of Lake Michigan, barge traffic wanted to move to Calumet Harbor by a shorter route rather than having to go through the Chicago Harbor and across the lake. So the pressure was on, and then this project was approved. And as I said, construction began in 1955. It lasted till about 1970. The channel was widened. The Little Calumet River was widened over to the mouth of Lake Calumet, and a new lock was built. The O'Brien Lock and Dam is on the Little Calumet River. This was that new stretch of river that was built in the 30s, and the new, much larger lock than the old Blue Island lock could accommodate several barges and a towboat at the same time. In addition to a lock, a dam or a barrier wall crosses the channel, linking to the eastern shore of the river, and sluice gates are there for the control of water other than the water that goes through the lock. So much for channel construction. That was the last of the channel construction. That was about 1970 when the channel construction was completed. And since then, there's been no increase in the channels serving the Chicago area. We'll talk about the sewers, the development of the sewers plan. Here's an old Chicago sewer map from 1908. It does show the original plan to build the channel over to the mouth of Lake Calumet. It also shows Hyde Lake, which was practically eliminated by that time anyway. But here are Chicago sewers flowing into the Calumet River. There's the Calumet pumping station. It pumped right into the river at 95th Street. A network of sewers over in the Roseland area, Pullman area, et cetera, discharging to Lake Calumet. And also with these pumping stations, the sewage was captured and pumped south through the Indiana Harbor sewer, discharging to the lake. So there was an effort not to discharge sewage directly to Lake Calumet. But stormwater could still go into Lake Calumet. Also, the little Chicago community of Hedgewish, located near Wolf Lake, had its own little pump station, and it pumped directly into the Grand Calumet River, which at that time was called the Grand Calumet River, on this map at least, at this point. Now, what the district did basically was they built the sewers that picked up all of these sewers discharging to the river, conveyed them and pumped them from a new station built adjacent to the city station here at 95th Street, in a new sewer that ran across the north end of Lake Calumet, down South Park, Indiana, and Prairie Avenues to the location of a new pumping station here and also a new plant where the sewage was treated before it was conveyed over to the Calumet Sag Channel. And after many, many years, this network of sewers has expanded to where it is today, serving the entire south area. So focusing back on that area around Lake Calumet, the new 95th Street pumping station and the intercepting sewers, picking up the sewage, conveying it across the north end of Lake Calumet to the new pumping station and the Calumet plant. That was the original construction, serving basically the south side of the city. The south suburbs were developing. The next interceptor came in from the south, the Harvey interceptor, bringing in sewage from Harvey, Phoenix, Dixmoor, and so forth, South Holland. And then the third major interceptor was the Calumet City intercepting sewer, bringing in sewage from Lansing, Calumet City, Burnham, and picking up the community of Hedgebush. Later, as suburban growth continued, that system was extended south all the way to the county line to pick up sewage in several far south suburbs. The fourth major intercepting sewer coming into the plant was from the west, the Blue Island interceptor, initially built to serve the Blue Island and area and areas in the south part of the city, Marionette Park and so forth. But as suburban expansion grew after World War II, that system has been extended to serve many communities, both north and south of the Calumet Sag Channel, extending out to the county borders. A separate system over by Lamont serves the Lamont plant with a few minor intercepting sewers. This entire area feeding into the Calumet plant is 305 square miles, roughly a 1 million population today. The original plant construction, the screen chamber and the grit chambers were built in the open. Right away, they realized that was a mistake. Ever since then, no more grit chambers or screen chambers are built in the open. They're all enclosed because of winter conditions. Everything gets fouled up with ice. The construction of the tankage for the plant used tower cranes, but of a different gender than we know today. These were just towers connected by cables, and material was moved around the site by hanging from these cables on cableways. This was also used for the delivery of concrete to build the large tanks. The process that was used was called Imhoff. It was a early treatment process, came out of Germany, and it was used widely, but there were other methods under study at the time, and so this method wasn't used for very long. This 1922 photograph pictures a reinforced concrete elevator along the then Michigan Central Railroad west of Lake Calumet. I believe that's a landmark many of you may remember. It was demolished around 1980. This plant, after the Imhoff tank, the effluent was polished in what is called a trickling filter. And then that was passed through settling tanks to remove solids to achieve the maximum quality they could at the day. Around the plant site, they also had farm plots. The dried solids were used as fertilizer in these plots. These were test plots. They raised different types of produce and to gauge the benefit of using sludge as a fertilizer. The solids that were settled on the Imhoff tanks were spread out on these drying beds and dried in the atmosphere And then it was a manual labor process to scoop up the dried solids, put them in small rail cars and haul them to a dump. This labor-intensive process was the attempt to mechanize it. And so this was a homemade digging device that was used successfully to clean the sludge off the beds. So this was another part of the plant. They were testing the new process called the activated sludge process. Part of the tankage was built in differently to serve that purpose. This was the operating gallery and final settling tanks. Behind the gallery were aeration tanks. That is the process that is used universally today at all water reclamation plants in the Chicago area. And it is pretty much the standard technology of the wastewater business. Also in this photo is the machinery building. We'll go inside that in a minute and look at the construction of a rotary drum vacuum filter. This was used as an alternative for air drying on those drying beds. The liquid slurry sludge would be fed onto this rotating drum. It had a blanket type material on it. And with a vacuum inside, it would draw the water out and create a like pancake batter consistency material that could be then spread on the ground. Didn't have to be, it could be piped and didn't have to be shoveled. Anyway, so there are a lot of innovative things going on here at Calumet. Here is a photograph of the garden. Looks like he's holding some ears of corn. And it was a successful project. The district has long used its processed solids in a beneficial way for agricultural purposes. Of course, today the Calumet plant is much different, much bigger. That original plant lasted for about 10 years. A new plant was built just to the north of it, I'm sorry, to the south of it, where the site is now. Here's the present day plant. We're looking north toward downtown Chicago. The original plant was located right about in this area. This plant now, this is a new pumping station, aeration tanks here all over the place, digestion tanks for the sludge. These are the final clarifying tanks. Over here, this smaller building is the pumping station for the deep tunnel that serves the Calumet area. And in the background are large lagoons for the storage of sludge. As part of the Water Reclamation District's responsibility for stormwater management, they've developed a plan for the Little Calumet River watershed, which is part of the Calumet area. Also a plan to the west of this for the Calumet Sag Channel area. But several flood control reservoirs have been built in the Little Calumet River watershed. And on this map, we also see a Hart Ditch. That was the extension of Plum Creek, excavated by Mr. Hart and through the Beach Ridge for a new outlet to the Little Calumet River. So this was the area of that Katy Marsh. And it was originally, one of its outlets originally was through North Creek and Thorn Creek around the east end, or the west end of the Beach Ridge. One of the flood control reservoirs is shown here. It's the Dr. Mary Woodland Reservoir on the Lincoln-Lansing drainage ditch. This is just west of the state line near Lincoln Highway, south of Lincoln Highway. It has a flood capacity of 350 million gallons. It's a large large reservoir with permanent water ponds. There are three interconnected ponds. This is the spillway for flood water to come into the reservoir from the Lincoln-Lansing ditch. Now Lincoln Lansing, there is a Lincoln Lansing drainage district in the area. It was formed back about 100 years ago to drain the marshy areas to increase agricultural production. It's still in existence. There's another drainage district in the Calumet areas. It's the Calumet Union Drainage District #1 over near South Holland and Markham and so forth. Both of these drainage districts, in my view, are outmoded. They don't serve a necessary function today. The drainage responsibilities have been taken over by the Water Reclamation District to its stormwater management responsibilities. So, but in Illinois, we have a habit of not getting rid of unnecessary governmental units, you know, so they're still around. Anyway. The Calumet area has its own deep tunnel system for handling combined sewer overflow. This black lines are the network of tunnels. The deep tunnel pumping stations, which you saw in the photograph of the plant earlier, is located right here, and the plant, of course, would be right next to it. Now, you would think that the pumping station the pumping station is the lowest point in this network of tunnels. Several miles to the south is the Thornton. Mute. Okay. May I continue? Yeah,
you're good.
Okay, I'm close to the end. So this network of tunnels was built starting in 1975, completed by 2006. And as I said, it picks up combined sewer overflows along the Little Calumet River and the Calumet River and the Sag Channel. It stores them in the reservoir until the flow can be passed back through the treatment plant for complete treatment. The reservoir, well, I got one more slide, but it's not moving. Come on. New share. No, I don't want to go back. There we go. This is a photo of the Thornton Reservoir. You may have visited this site. This is the toll road crossing. The reservoir is the north lobe of the Thornton Quarry, and the connection between the quarry was blocked by this dam built under the toll road. This stores stormwater captured from the combined sewers in the Calumet area and stormwater overflow from Thorn Creek, which would otherwise cause flooding in many of the south suburban communities. And last but not least, I end this book with a chapter on lake diversion, which covers the entire history starting in 1898 with the litigation from St. Louis up to the present time under the Supreme Court decree allowing Illinois to divert a quantity of water from Lake Michigan. So the diverted area is shown here on this is the area, 673 square miles, which formerly drained to Lake Michigan, which now drains to the Des Plaines and Illinois River and the Mississippi River via the allowable diversion and the reversal of flow of both the Chicago and the Calumet Rivers. That's basically the end of my presentation. I want to thank you for listening, and also I hope it's been informative. And the title of the book, Calumet First and Forever, I guess you should realize what the first means by now. I've pointed out many of the firsts, and the forever is that this, I'm personally convinced that the plant name should never be changed. The commissioners at the Water Reclamation District have the authority to change names, and they've changed the names of many plants to honor former commissioners who have long been forgotten. But I think in the case of Calumet, it should always be called the Calumet plant because that's just the area that it is in, and it has a strong historical connection to this area. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, thanks, Dick.
Thank you.
Any questions?
You want me to stop share?
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. And I'm sorry, I disconnected you for a second there, so trying to do something else. But are there no questions? Questions from Dirk?
Yeah. That was a great presentation, first of all. I can hardly wait to get the book. When the heavy industries started linking into the sewer system in the Calumet area, how does the MWRD keep that from negatively affecting the activated sludge, you know, with the heavy chemicals?
Good question. Actually, this began before the activated sludge process was used with the second plant because the pickle liquors from the steel plants and the paint wastes were affecting even the imhoff process. Initially, the district reached out to these industries, and through cooperation, they were able to get the industries to modify their practices in discharging so that there was minimal impact on the treatment process. In time, however, industry began to not be cooperative, and that's what brought on the pretreatment program, which put limits on the discharge of industrial waste. That dates back to the early 1940s.
Other questions?
Yeah, I guess I have another quick one too. When the Thornton Reservoir fills up, you know, like that one photograph you showed,
Yes.
my understanding is all that then slowly goes through the wastewater treatment facility and all gets treated.
Yes, it does.
Would you have 8 billion gallons or so? How many is the capacity there to treat that all, and how long does that take?
Yes, there is the capacity, but it does take a while. If you had the reservoir full, it would be the better part of a month to drain the reservoir.
Okay.
They maintain the reservoir with a water cover on the bottom, enough so that there is to suppress any odors from fermentation of the solids on the bottom. Also to this water cover is aerated to maintain sufficient oxygen. And also it's kept at a high enough level so that any odors from the tunnel system don't come out of the tunnel into the reservoir. The reservoir is also gated, but so they oftentimes will close the gates during prolonged dry spells.
Hello, gang. How y'all doing?
Okay.
How you doing, Mike?
I just want to ask you about Indian Creek. Have you heard any status on it yet of Indian Creek between Wolf Lake and Wolf Lake and Powderhorn?
I'm sorry, I'm not getting your question very well.
I was asking about the status of Indian of. I was asking about the status. I was asking about the status of Indian. I'm asking about the status of Indian Creek.
Indian Creek?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, all I know about Indian Creek is that that was improved maybe 20 years ago by the city of Chicago. They'd restored part of the creek, and opened up the river wall on the Calumet River, um, and have done other restoration along the alignment of the creek up to Wolf Lake. Other than that, I have no information about it.
And what's going on between Wolf Lake and Powderhorn Lake, between Indian Creek?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
Oh, I think I can answer that, Dick. Blake, they're reconnecting Wolf Lake with Powderhorn Lake, and that's a 2-year process. And I think they're doing the engineering this year and the construction next year. And that's between the Cook County Forest Preserve District and Audubon Great Lakes.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I'm not up to date on that project.
Right. And just for your information, Dick, there's a Superfund site on Indian Creek now. And so, and that will continue for many years, I'm sure.
Ah, okay.
How has the increase in the level of Lake Michigan affected the processes of water treatment at the Calumet plant?
Well, the increase in water level on Lake Michigan has no impact on the treatment process at the Calumet Water Reclamation Plant. You know, the canal system is regulated and it's hydraulically isolated from Lake Michigan by virtue of the O'Brien Lock and Dam on the Calumet River, the Chicago River Lock on the Chicago River, and the pumping station up on Wilmette on the North Shore Channel. So no matter what the water level does on Lake Michigan, it doesn't impact the canal system or the sewer system in the urban area. I suppose if the lake kept rising, it might overtop some of the walls along the Chicago lakefront, and then we would have a problem because there would uncontrollable flow would flood out the sewer systems.
I have another question. Is Lake Calumet still connected to Lake Michigan?
Lake,
I said is Lake Calumet still connected to Lake Michigan with the help of the connection to the Calumet River?
Lake Calumet is connected to Lake Michigan. The O'Brien Lock and Dam is south of 130th Street. So everything north of the Lock and Dam is open to Lake Michigan. So the high water in Lake Michigan will impact Lake Calumet.
And how can we bring Lake Calumet back to its natural form again after it's been industrially developed?
Well, you'd have to put in some sort of a control structure if you wanted to bring down the water level independent of Lake Michigan. Otherwise, you know, a high lake level is just going to back up into Lake Calumet.
And Durs, how you doing? Long time no see.
How you doing, Blake?
What?
No, Blake and I are old friends. We haven't seen each other for a while.
Oh, okay.
I've been trying to email you for over a year about the seeds and stuff, but you didn't respond back to me. And I've worked real hard down in my community in the south side of Chicago.
I promise I will, Blake.
Give me an email or shoot me back if you got anything.
Dick, I have a question about the source of photographs. Are they MWRD photographs in the archive, or there's a group of us on this call that are working on a habitat corridor project between Phase Point and O'Brien Lock and Dam. A couple of the photos of, close to Riverdale were really interesting. I'm wondering if there's more photographs along that.
Oh, yeah, we got tons of photographs. Most of the photographs you saw were from the MWRD archives. I have access to all of them, so if you
Yeah, we'll get in touch with you then.
if
Yeah,
you need
that's
if you
great.
need any help, I'll be happy to help you. Let's see, the only photographs that were not from the archives are the more recent photos. But those were from the district, like the O'Brien Lock and Dam photographs, the aerial photograph of the Calumet plant from the district. That one photograph of the wider Calumet Seg Channel at Southwest Highway and the Wabash Railroad, that was from the Worth Historical Society. I found that in their archives. So I've got a couple other photographs from Worth that show the Calumet Seg Channel being widened in the 50s. And of course, their suburban expansion was minimal at that time. So it's interesting to see all this open space along the Calumet Seg Channel. It's all built up nowadays.
Okay, any further questions? Okay.
I have one more question.
Okay,
I want to ask you, how can we preserve water here in the Calumet region and keep it clean for future generations to come?
You're talking about keeping what clean for the future generations? Lake Michigan?
All bodies of water, our rivers, lakes, streams, and our lakes, rivers, streams, and even ponds. All bodies of water,
Can you help me
including.
with what he's referring to? I don't quite understand what you're referring to.
I'm referring to I'm referring to Lake Calumet, Wolf Lake, George Lake, Little and Grand Calumet rivers, and some of those places, including even Dead Stick Pond up at Indian Ridge.
You're referring to all of the lakes and the waterways.
Yeah.
Well, continued enforcement of, well, first of all, I hope we can restore a lot of environmental regulations that have been recently downsized, but we have to continue to enforce those. And then, of course, the Corps of Engineers has completed a lot of restoration work along the Grand Calumet River. They never did the Illinois side, but that should probably be addressed if Illinois can find a sponsor for it. And the lakes, there are the Clean Lake programs that can be used. So I think the resources are there if organizations want to pursue them.
Okay, further questions? If not, I just want to remind everybody that our next Calumet Revisited will be on Tuesday, February 2nd, and we'll be learning about dragonflies. So I want to thank Dick for being here. I just wanted to mention that I thought the photographs that you were able to find were just excellent. And so the archive there must be well protected. And I just appreciate everybody being here, and we'll see you next month. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Am I, is it going to be about dragonflies of the Calumet region?
Yes. Yes, the answer is yes, Mike. Okay.
Bye-bye.